The galaxy feared what came after humans repaid their debt. Part 5. 1 year after the New Dawn massacre, the galaxy looked very different. The war, if it could be called that, was over. The harmonious collective existed only in history files. The species that had conspired against humanity had faced consequences, some harsher than others, all appropriate to their level of involvement. President Yunji stood in the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers. The old structure had been torn down, replaced with something new. The design was more open, with transparent walls that reminded everyone that secrecy had nearly destroyed them all. "We gather today to approve the new Galactic Charter," the council speaker announced. She was the same being who had dismissed humanity's offer to help the Valkyrie all those years ago. She looked older now, tired. "This charter represents our commitment to preventing the mistakes of the past." Ambassador Taehyung, the new human representative, read through the charter one more time. He was young, barely 30, but he had been chosen specifically because he represented humanity's future rather than its past. The document before him contained rules that should have existed from the beginning. Transparency in all council matters. No secret alliances. No military buildups without notification. Independent inspections for any species suspected of developing weapons of mass destruction. And most importantly, consequences for those who violated galactic law, with enforcement that actually meant something. "The human delegation approves this charter," Taehyung said clearly. "But we want to add one more provision." The chamber grew quiet. Humanity had earned the right to make demands, but they had been surprisingly modest in their requests. What more could they want? "We propose a mutual defense agreement," Taehyung continued. "Any species, regardless of size or power, that is attacked without justification, can call on the Council for protection. And the Council must respond. No more standing by while innocents are murdered. No more looking away from injustice because it's convenient." Several representatives shifted uncomfortably. Such an agreement would require them to actually act, to potentially fight on behalf of others. "This would require significant military commitment," one representative said carefully. "Not all species have the resources that humanity possesses." "Then we will help provide those resources," Taehyung replied. "Humanity will share defensive technology with any species that wants it. We'll train their forces. We'll stand beside them if they're attacked. All we ask is that others do the same." The Valkyrie representative, a younger member of their species named Torres, stood to speak. "The Valkyrie support this proposal completely. In fact, we have already been working with humanity on technology sharing programs. It is time the galaxy learned to truly stand together." The vote passed with only minor opposition. The new Galactic Charter became law. But laws and charters were just words. The real work was happening on worlds throughout the galaxy. Dr. Yaren walked through a refugee camp on what had once been a Thaxian military base. The war had displaced millions of people, not through human action but through the chaos that followed when governments collapsed. Thaxians who had lost homes when their economy crashed, Solarian civilians who fled their world when the biological weapons evidence came to light, even some Dracor who could no longer live with the shame of their defeat. "The medical supplies arrived yesterday," her assistant, Mirai, reported. "We have enough vaccines for everyone in the camp now." Yaren nodded, reviewing the patient charts on her tablet. She was tired, had been tired for months, but this work mattered. "What about the children's education program?" "Starting next week. We have volunteers from 6 different species willing to teach." It still amazed Yaren how quickly things had changed. A year ago, these species had been planning humanity's downfall. Now human doctors, engineers, and teachers worked alongside their civilians, helping them rebuild. Not because they had to, but because it was right. "Dr. Yaren," a voice called. She turned to see a Thaxian family approaching. The father carried a young child, maybe 5 years old, who looked sick. "Please," the father said in broken human language. "My daughter. She has fever." "Very hot." Yaren immediately switched to her medical mode, gently examining the child. "Bacterial infection, easily treatable." She prepared an antibiotic injection and administered it carefully. "She'll feel better soon," Yaren said in Thaxian, having learned the language months ago. "Come back tomorrow so I can check on her." The father's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, My government killed your people. Why do you help us?" Yaren looked at the sick child in his arms. "Because she didn't kill anyone. She's just a little girl who needs medicine. That's all that matters." On the Dracor homeworld, Admiral Xianwu met with their military leaders. The Dracor had been devastated by their defeat, not physically but spiritually. They had built their entire culture around being the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Humanity had destroyed that belief in 6 hours. "We came to discuss the demilitarization protocols," Xianwu said, sitting across from General Vokresh, the highest-ranking Dracor officer who hadn't been arrested for war crimes. "We understand our military must be limited," Vokresh said stiffly. "We accept these terms." "That's not why I'm here," Xianwu replied. "I'm here to offer you something." He activated a holographic display showing a ship design. It was sleek, powerful, clearly military in nature. "This is our Aurora-class frigate. Fast, well-armed, excellent for patrol and defense operations. We're offering to help you build a fleet of them." Vokresh stared at the display in confusion. "You defeated us. Why would you arm us again?" "Because the galaxy still has threats. Pirates, raiders, species that prey on the weak. The Dracor were warriors before they were our enemies. The galaxy needs warriors, but warriors who protect rather than conquer. You trust us with this?" Xianwu smiled slightly. "Trust is earned, but everyone deserves a chance to earn it. Your people were led astray by leaders who saw humans as a threat rather than potential allies. Those leaders are facing justice. The rest of you deserve a chance to be what you claim to be, honorable warriors." Vokresh was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and gave a formal Dracor salute, fist over heart. "You honor us. We will prove worthy of this trust." On Earth, young Captain Jaewon stood in the ceremony for his new command. The ship behind him gleamed in the sun, fresh from the construction yards. Its name was painted on the hull in letters 10 meters high, New Dawn 2. President Yoonji herself performed the commissioning ceremony. She looked older than she had a year ago. The weight of the decisions she'd made, the lives lost and saved, showed in her face, but she stood tall. "This ship carries the name of those we lost," she said to the assembled crowd. 12,000 souls who wanted only to build new lives, to explore, to grow. They were murdered for that dream. We went to war to honor them, to ensure their deaths meant something. She turned to face Jaewon directly. "But this ship represents more than memory. It represents hope. Captain Jaewon's mission is to establish a colony in the Kepler system. But he won't be going alone. 3 other species are sending colonists on this mission. Humans, Thaxians, Velkari, and Dracor, all working together to build something new." The crowd murmured in surprise. "A joint colony? With former enemies? Some will say we're being naive," Yoonji continued. "That we're risking our people again. But I say we're being smart. The only way to ensure peace is to give everyone a stake in that peace. These colonists will build a world together. Their children will grow up as friends, not enemies. That is how we prevent another tragedy like the first New Dawn." Captain Jaewon saluted. "We won't let you down, Madam President." "I know you won't." "Fair skies, Captain." As the New Dawn 2 lifted off, beginning its journey to the Kepler system, the galaxy watched. Some watched with hope, believing this truly was a new beginning. Others watched with skepticism, thinking humanity was making a mistake. But all of them watched with respect. The galaxy had learned that humanity could fight when pushed. Now they were learning that humanity could forgive when given reason. In the Velkari capital, matriarch Laessa sat with President Yoonji in a garden of silver trees. They were both old now, both tired, but both satisfied with what they had accomplished. "You could have destroyed them all," Laessa said quietly. "The species that betrayed you. You had the power and the justification." "We could have," Yoonji agreed. "But then what? Rule a galaxy that hates us out of fear? Watch our children grow up surrounded by enemies? That's not the future we saved the Velkari to create." "You are wise beyond your years for such a young species." Yoonji laughed softly. "We're not wise. We're stubborn. We refuse to accept that violence is the only answer. We refuse to believe that justice and mercy can't exist together." She paused. "Besides, you taught us well." "We taught you nothing," Laessa said. "Everything you did, you chose yourselves. You saved us when we were dying. We remembered that. When we had power, we tried to use it the way you would have. With strength, yes, but also with restraint. With anger, yes, but also with hope." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the silver trees sway in the artificial breeze. The galaxy feared what came after humans repaid their debt. Part 4, 3 months into humanity's response, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The harmonious collective was shattered. Species that had plotted together now pointed fingers at each other, trying to minimize their own involvement. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions daily, each one more chaotic than the last. But the most shocking change was how other species now viewed humanity. Fear had replaced condescension, respect had replaced mockery, and something else had emerged too. Hope, from those who had been oppressed by the very species humanity now targeted. Admiral Xianwu reviewed intelligence reports in his ready room. Officer Soman stood across from him, her tablet displaying information that had taken months to gather. The Sularians are the last holdouts, she reported. But we've discovered something interesting. They're not just refusing to surrender. They're trying to rally other species to their cause. Any success? None. Most species are too afraid of what we'll do to them if they interfere. But the Solarians are persistent. They're calling us tyrants, saying we're trying to dominate the galaxy. Xianwu almost laughed. We're trying to get justice for 12,000 murdered civilians. That makes us tyrants? In their view, yes. They're also hiding something. Soman pulled up financial records. We've tracked unusual transactions. The Solarians have been funding illegal weapons research, not just conventional arms. They've been trying to create biological weapons. The Admiral's expression darkened. Biological weapons? Against whom? According to the data we've intercepted, against multiple species they consider rivals, including some who were their allies in the collective. She paused, and they had plans for use against human colonies. Diseases tailored to human biology. Show me everything. What Soman revealed over the next hour made Xianwu's blood run cold. The Solarians hadn't just been part of the conspiracy against humanity. They had been planning atrocities against dozens of species, plagues designed to kill slowly, genetic weapons that would destroy crops, even experimental agents that would make entire populations sterile. This goes beyond the New Dawn, Xianwu said quietly. This is attempted genocide on a massive scale. Multiple genocides, sir. They've been planning this for decades. Does President Yunji know? She's being briefed now. On Earth, President Yunji sat in a secure conference room watching the evidence unfold on multiple screens. Each revelation made her feel sicker. She had thought the Solarians were simply proud, simply refusing to admit their role in the conspiracy. This was so much worse. We need to tell the galaxy, her chief of staff said. Everyone needs to see this. They will, Yunji promised. But first, I want confirmation that every piece of this evidence is genuine. I want multiple independent sources, because when we release this, it will change everything. Envoy Kyung-Soo was already working on that confirmation. He traveled to neutral worlds, speaking with scientists and investigators who had no connection to humanity. Each one verified the evidence independently. The Solarians had indeed been creating biological weapons on a scale that shocked even hardened researchers. Why would they do this? One investigator asked Kyung-Soo. What could they possibly gain? Control, Kyung-Soo answered. If you have weapons that can destroy entire species, you can make those species do whatever you want. You become untouchable. But you humans stop them. We're trying to. They still haven't surrendered. The investigator, a member of a species that had remained neutral throughout the conflict, looked at Kyung-Soo with what might have been respect. Your people saved the Velkari once. It seems you're saving the rest of us now, too. When the evidence was verified and confirmed, humanity released it to the entire galaxy. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had been critical of humanity's military actions suddenly went silent. The Sularians' former allies in the collective condemned them publicly, but the Sularians themselves denied everything. They claimed the evidence was fabricated, that humanity was creating propaganda to justify their aggression. They called for the Galactic Council to intervene and stop the human rampage. The Council held a vote. Should they demand humanity cease its military operations? The results surprised many. Only 8 species voted yes. 43 voted no. The rest abstained. The Galactic Council recognizes that humanity's actions, while extreme, have been focused on seeking justice for clear violations of galactic law, the speaker announced. Furthermore, the evidence of Sularian biological weapons programs represents a threat to all species. The Council will not interfere in this matter. It was the first time in galactic history that the Council had effectively endorsed military action by one species against another. Captain Minjae and his stealth fleet were given new orders. They were to locate and secure all Solarian biological weapons facilities. The locations were well hidden, scattered across a dozen worlds, often underground or disguised as civilian research centers. "This isn't going to be clean," Minjay told his crew. "These facilities are in populated areas. We need to be perfect. Not a single civilian casualty. Not one." His ships moved through Solarian space like ghosts. They identified each facility, mapped the surrounding areas, and prepared for simultaneous strikes. Meanwhile, General Jaesung's Ghost Corps infiltrated the facilities themselves, gathering more evidence and identifying personnel. The strikes happened all at once. Across 12 worlds, human forces hit biological weapons labs with precision that seemed impossible. They disabled defenses, secured deadly pathogens, and arrested the scientists involved. Not a single weapon was released. Not a single vial was broken. "All facilities secured," Jaesung reported to Admiral Sianwu. "We have the scientists, the research data, and enough evidence to bury the Solarian government." "Casualties?" "On our side, none. Civilian casualties, 0. We had to stun some security forces, but no one was killed." Admiral Sianwu allowed himself a small smile. "Good, because the whole galaxy is watching." They were. Every action humanity took was being broadcast, analyzed, and discussed. What amazed observers was the restraint. Humanity had weapons that could crack planets. They had technology that could make entire star systems uninhabitable. They had shown they could destroy military forces with ease, but they chose not to. They chose precision over destruction. They chose justice over revenge. The Velkari finally spoke publicly about the conflict. Matriarch Lyessa, now ancient beyond measure but still sharp of mind, addressed the Galactic Council in person. It was the first time she had left the Velkari homeworld in 50 years. "The Council questions humanity's actions," she said, her voice carrying the weight of millennia. "You fear their military power. You worry about their intentions. Let me remind you of something." She activated a display showing the Velkari homeworld as it had been during the Crimson Fade. Dying cities, failing civilization, a species on the edge of extinction. Humanity saved us when all of you had given up. They asked for nothing, expected nothing. They did it because it was right. Because they could not stand by and watch us die. The display changed to show the new dawn burning in space. Then some of you murdered their people. 12,000 innocents destroyed without mercy or warning. You lied about it. You covered it up. And you thought humanity would simply accept this. Lyessa's eyes swept across the assembled representatives. You feared what humanity might become. Your fear led you to betray them. Now you learn the truth. Humanity remembers. Humanity repays its debts, both kindness and cruelty. They could have destroyed every species involved in this conspiracy. They have the power, but they chose justice instead. She paused, letting that sink in. We Velkari have watched species rise and fall for thousands of years. We have seen empires that spanned galaxies and civilizations that thought themselves eternal. Most fell because they forgot that power without restraint leads only to destruction. Humanity understands this. They are angry, yes. They are hurt, yes. But they remain in control. They target only those who attacked them. They protect civilians even among their enemies. This is not the behavior of tyrants. This is the behavior of a mature species worthy of respect. They are still too dangerous, the Dracor representative said. His species had been humbled by their defeat, but pride remained. They have weapons beyond anything we knew possible. Technology that seems like magic. How can we trust them? How can you trust anyone? Lyessa countered. Every species here has weapons. Every species here could cause harm. But most choose not to. Humanity has shown they will defend themselves when attacked. They have also shown they will stop when justice is served. That is not danger. That is strength tempered by wisdom. She straightened, though it clearly cost her effort. The Velkari made a promise 50 years ago. When humanity calls, we answer. We stand by that promise. We stand with humanity in this matter. Any species that chooses to oppose them opposes us as well. The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. The Velkari were peaceful, had been peaceful for millennia. For them to take sides in a military conflict was unprecedented, but it was also decisive. With Velkari support, humanity's position became unassailable. The few remaining critics went silent. The species that had planned to demand human restraint reconsidered. The galaxy feared what came after humans repaid their debt. Part 3, 6 months passed after the New Dawn massacre. To the galaxy, it seemed humanity had accepted the Thaxian explanation. Human ships continued their trade routes. Human diplomats attended council meetings. Everything appeared normal. But those who paid attention noticed small things. Human vessels that should have been in certain sectors simply weren't there. Colony populations seemed lower than expected. And the normally chatty human communications networks had gone strangely quiet. Admiral Xianwu stood aboard the flagship Reckoning, deep in space far beyond any charted system. Around him floated 200 human warships, all running in complete silence. Not a single signal escaped their hulls. They had been gathering here for months, using Velkari jump gates to bypass all known routes. "Final report," he ordered. His tactical officer, Commander Dayun, brought up the displays. Ghost Corps units are in position on 7 Thaxian worlds. Fleet elements are positioned in all target systems. Intelligence networks are active. "We're ready, sir." "And the other forces?" "Task Force Vengeance is ready for the Dracor. Task Force Justice is positioned near the Solarian systems. All targets in the Harmonious Collective have been identified and bracketed." Dayun paused. "Sir, we're about to engage 1/3 of the galaxy's military powers simultaneously." "Not engage," Xianwu corrected. "We're about to remind them who they attacked." On the Thaxian homeworld, General Jaesung moved through the shadows of their capital city. His Ghost Corps soldiers were invisible, literally. The suits they wore bent light around them, making them impossible to see. They had been on this world for 3 weeks, mapping every government building, every military installation, every communications hub. Tonight, the mapping was over. Tonight, they acted. "All units begin Phase 1, Jaesung whispered into his communicator. Across the Thaxian capital, Ghost Corps teams placed devices at key locations. Not bombs. These were transmitters designed to hijack every screen, every radio, every communication device in the entire empire. At exactly midnight Thaxian time, every screen flickered. Citizens watching their evening entertainment suddenly saw something else. Politicians in closed meetings found their displays showing images they didn't recognize. Military officers preparing reports looked up as their computers switched to an external broadcast. The recording showed the bridge of the new dawn. Captain Yuna appeared, calm and professional, trying to communicate with the Thaxian warships. Then came the weapons fire, the screams, the chaos. The recording showed everything, including the Thaxian commander's laughing voice saying, "Let's teach these humans to stay in their place." After the recording ended, a simple message appeared in every Thaxian language. "You murdered 12,000 innocent people. You lied about it. Now everyone knows the truth. Justice is coming." The Thaxian government scrambled to respond, to shut down the broadcast, but it was too late. The entire empire had seen the truth. More importantly, the broadcast was being transmitted across the entire galaxy. Every species, every world saw what the Thaxians had done. And then the human fleet arrived. Admiral Xianwu's force appeared simultaneously in 7 Thaxian systems. Not their colonies or frontier worlds, their core systems, their most important military installations, the places they thought were safe. "Open communications," Xianwu ordered. "All channels." His face appeared on every screen throughout the Thaxian Empire. He looked calm, even gentle, but his words carried weight like falling stars. "I am Admiral Xianwu of the United Earth Fleet. 72 hours ago, you saw proof of your empire's crime. You murdered our people. You lied to the galaxy. You thought we would simply accept this." He paused, letting silence emphasize his words. "You thought wrong. We are targeting your military assets only. Civilian populations are not in danger. But your ability to wage war ends today. You have 1 hour to evacuate all personnel from the facilities we have marked. After that, we will begin." "Sir, they're scrambling their defense fleets," Dayun reported. "Let them come. Weapons free on all military targets. Remember, no civilian casualties." The battle that followed shocked the galaxy. Human ships moved with precision that seemed impossible. They used weapons the other species had never seen. Missiles that could change direction mid-flight. Energy beams that curved around obstacles. And something new, something terrifying. Captain Borum commanded the experimental warship Retribution. Its main weapon was based on theories that most scientists said were impossible. They called it a singularity projector. It created tiny black holes that lasted only seconds, but could tear apart any structure caught in their pull. "Target the orbital defense platform," Borum ordered. "Fire," The weapon activated. Space itself seemed to bend near the Thaxian platform. For just a moment, a point of absolute darkness appeared. The massive platform, designed to withstand years of bombardment, simply came apart. Pieces flew in all directions, pulled by impossible forces. Then the singularity collapsed and everything was still. "Target destroyed," her weapons officer reported, his voice shaking. No debris reached the planet's surface. That pattern repeated across all 7 systems. Human forces dismantled the Thaxian military with surgical precision. Orbital defenses gone, warships disabled or destroyed, communications hubs silenced, but cities remained untouched. Civilian vessels were allowed to flee. The humans targeted only those who could fight back. Within 72 hours, the Thaxian Empire surrendered unconditionally, but humanity wasn't finished. In the Galactic Council chambers, the emergency session was already underway when President Yunji's image appeared on the main display. Behind her stood representatives from the Velkari. "Honored council members," Yunji began, her voice formal and cold. "We have evidence to present." What followed was a complete exposure of the Harmonious Collective, communications showing the conspiracy, plans to limit and eventually subjugate humanity, economic manipulation, border buildups, all of it laid bare for the entire galaxy to see. 23 species were involved. Some had been minor players, offering only political support. Others, like the Dracor and the Solarians, had been planning military action against human worlds. "You plotted our extinction," Yunji said. "You murdered our innocent. Some of you claim you were only following others, that you didn't know how far it would go. Perhaps that's true." She leaned forward and every being watching felt the weight of her stare. "But it doesn't matter. You participated. You knew we were being targeted and you said nothing. Some of you celebrated when the new dawn burned. You thought we were too young, too weak, too naive to be a threat." Her expression hardened. "You were wrong. We are offering one chance and only one. Surrender those individuals responsible for planning and executing attacks on human assets. Dismantle your secret alliance. Submit to independent inspections to verify compliance. Do this and we will show mercy." "And if we refuse?" the Dracor representative asked, his voice full of pride and anger. "Then we will show you why Earth survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and every disaster our world could throw at us. We will show you what happens when you back humans into a corner. We will show you that there is a difference between a species that evolved on a kind world and one that had to fight for every single day of existence." The Dracor representative stood. "The Dracor do not surrender to threats. We are warriors proven in 1,000 battles." "Then you will get your battle," Yunji promised, "and you will lose." Some species immediately agreed to humanity's terms. Smaller members of the collective, those who had only offered political support, handed over their officials and opened their systems to inspection. They chose survival over pride. But 7 species, including the Dracor and the Solarians, refused. They called humanity's bluff. They believed their military might would prevail. They had millions of soldiers, thousands of ships, centuries of combat experience. They didn't understand that humanity had spent 6 months preparing for this. Every weakness had been studied. Every target had been identified. And most importantly, humanity had shown restraint with the Thaxians. That restraint had been a message: we can be precise. We can be merciful, but if you make us show you our full strength, that mercy ends. The Dracor hegemony learned this lesson first. They were famous across the galaxy as warriors, proud and strong. Their military academies were the best, their soldiers the most disciplined. They thought they were ready for anything. They weren't ready for Captain Minjay and his stealth destroyer fleet. These ships could enter a system and remain completely undetected. They didn't fight like the Dracor expected. They didn't engage in honorable combat. Instead, they painted a message on the Dracor's orbital defense grid, letters so large they could be seen from the planet's surface. The message was simple: you cannot hide. You cannot run, surrender or fall. The Dracor chose to fight. Admiral Xianwu gave them that fight. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Dracor had lost their entire home defense fleet, every orbital platform, and their ability to project power beyond their own system. Human losses: 3 ships, 27 personnel. The galaxy watched in horror. The Dracor had been one of the most powerful military forces known. Humanity had destroyed them in an afternoon. The galaxy feared what came after humans repaid their debt. Part 250 years had passed since humanity saved the Velkari. The galaxy had changed in ways no one expected. Human colonies now dotted 30 different star systems. Their ships traveled routes that once took months in mere days thanks to Velkari jump gate access. Where there had been empty worlds, human terraformers had created gardens. Admiral Xianwu stood in the command center of Earth's primary defense station, studying the holographic map of human space. Each blue dot represented a colony, a station, or an outpost. There were so many now. Too many, according to some. The Galactic Council has issued another statement, his aide informed him. They're calling our expansion concerning and potentially destabilizing. Xianwu frowned. He was old enough to remember when humanity had barely 10 ships capable of interstellar travel. Now they had hundreds. Was that really so wrong? Humans hadn't conquered anyone. They hadn't stolen worlds. They had simply grown, as all living things did. On Earth, President Yunji read the same statement in her office. She had been elected 2 years ago on a platform of continued expansion and exploration. The people of Earth and its colonies wanted to see what was out there, to build new homes, to reach further into the stars. They're afraid of us, she said to her advisor. Not because we've done anything wrong, but because we're doing everything right. Her advisor, Hyunwoo, was the director of the Human Intelligence Agency. He dealt in secrets and shadows in the things people didn't say out loud. Right now, his expression troubled her. It's worse than fear, Madam President, he said quietly. We've intercepted communications between several major species. They're forming an alliance. They call it the Harmonious Collective. An alliance for what purpose? To contain us. To make sure humanity doesn't become too powerful. He placed a data pad on her desk. They're building up military forces along our borders. They're manipulating trade agreements to hurt our economy. They're preparing for something. Yunji felt cold despite the warm office. They're preparing to stop us by force if necessary. That's our assessment, yes. She thought of all those blue dots on the map, all those human families building lives on distant worlds. She thought of her daughter, living on the colony in the Kepler system, pregnant with Yunji's first grandchild. What do they expect us to do? She asked. Just stop growing? Stay small and harmless forever? I think that's exactly what they expect. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Minho had grown old. His hair was white now, his movements slower, but his mind remained sharp. He listened as species after species voiced their concerns about human expansion. You grow too fast, one representative said. Your people are everywhere. You settle worlds at the edges of established territories. We follow all regulations, Minho replied calmly. We claim only unoccupied worlds. We respect all boundaries. But you push constantly at those boundaries, another accused. You are too aggressive, too hungry for more. Minho wanted to laugh. Humanity had saved the Velkari, had shared their discovery freely with the galaxy. They had helped other species with medical problems, had traded fairly, had been good neighbors. And this was how the galaxy responded? With suspicion and fear? We simply want to live, he said. To grow, to explore. These are not crimes. No one is accusing you of crimes, the council speaker said. But the galaxy must maintain balance. We are implementing new restrictions on colony establishment. All species must limit their expansion to no more than 2 new worlds per decade. Minho stood slowly. His knees ached, but his voice carried clearly. 50 years ago, humanity saved an entire species from extinction. We asked for nothing. We expected nothing, but we thought we had earned at least respect, trust. Now you treat us like children, who need to be controlled. 1. Good deed does not grant unlimited privilege, the Thaxian representative said coldly. No, Minho agreed, but it should count for something. The vote passed anyway. Humanity would be restricted, limited, controlled. Minho sent the news back to Earth along with his resignation. He was too old and too tired to fight battles that should never have needed fighting. Captain Yuna commanded the colony ship New Dawn. It was one of the largest vessels humanity had ever built, capable of carrying 12,000 people in comfortable suspended animation. These weren't soldiers or scientists. They were families, farmers and teachers, engineers and artists, all seeking new lives on a world in the Tausedi system. The route should have been safe. It passed through neutral space, territory claimed by no one. But as the New Dawn emerged from its jump, alarms screamed across the bridge. Multiple contacts, her sensor officer reported. 6 ships all armed. Configuration matches Thaxian military vessels. Una felt her stomach drop. What were Thaxian warships doing here? This was neutral space. Open communication channels, she ordered. This is Captain Una of the colony ship New Dawn. We are on a peaceful mission through neutral space. Is there a problem? The response came quickly, but it wasn't words. The Thaxian ships opened fire. Una barely had time to scream orders before the first weapons struck. The New Dawn had basic shields meant to protect against debris and radiation, not military-grade plasma cannons. They failed almost immediately. Get everyone to the escape pods. Una shouted, but she knew it was hopeless. The ship was too big, the attack too sudden. The second volley hit the engineering section, and the New Dawn's reactor went critical. In the last seconds before the explosion, Una activated the emergency beacon and the ship's black box recorder. If nothing else, people would know what happened here. They would know this wasn't an accident. Then there was only light and heat and silence. The news reached Earth within hours. 12,000 people dead, murdered in neutral space without warning or provocation. The Thaxian Empire claimed it was a tragic accident, a navigation error, that their ships had been on exercises and hadn't seen the New Dawn until too late. But Hyunwoo's intelligence agency had already recovered the black box. They had the recordings, they had the communications. They knew the truth. President Yoonji watched the recovered footage in her office. She watched the Thaxian ships deliberately target the colony vessel. She heard the Thaxian commander laughing as he gave the order to fire. She heard him say, "Let's teach these humans to stay in their place." She watched it 3 times, making sure she understood exactly what she was seeing. Then she called an emergency meeting of Earth's government and military leadership. Admiral Seonwoo arrived first. General Jaesung came next, the commander of humanity's special forces. They were joined by scientists, strategists, and politicians. All of them had seen the footage. "They murdered our people," General Jaesung said, his voice tight with controlled rage. 12,000 civilians, families, children. "And they're covering it up," Hyunwoo added. "The Galactic Council is going along with their story. They're calling it an accident and demanding we accept their apology and move on. We have proof," someone said. "We can show everyone what really happened." "They won't care," Yoonji said quietly. She stood at the window, looking out at Earth below. Somewhere down there, 12,000 families had just learned they would never see their loved ones again. They'll call our evidence fabricated. They'll say we're trying to start trouble. The council has already made their decision. "So what do we do?" Admiral Seonwoo asked. Yoonji turned to face them all. In her eyes burned something cold and hard, something that had not been there before. "We've been patient," she said. "We've been peaceful. We've followed their rules, accepted their restrictions, proven ourselves over and over again. We saved the Velkari. We've helped dozens of other species with our technology and medical knowledge. We've been good members of this galactic community." She paused, letting her words sink in. "They answered our kindness with treachery. They answered our peace with murder. They think we'll just accept this, that we'll bow our heads and be grateful they allow us to exist." "What are you saying?" someone asked nervously. President Yoonji's voice was calm, but everyone in the room heard the steel beneath it. "I'm saying the debt we are owed will be repaid, one way or another. We tried to be their friends. They've made us their enemies. Now they're going to learn what that means." She looked at Admiral Seonwoo. "Begin mobilization. I want every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have ready to deploy. Quietly, carefully, but quickly." "And the Galactic Council?" Hyunwoo asked. "Tell them we accept their apology," Yoonji said. "Tell them we understand it was an accident. Tell them whatever they want to hear. While we prepare for war," Admiral Seonwoo finished. "Not war," Yoonji corrected. "Justice. There's a difference." As the meeting ended and people filed out to begin their tasks, Yoonji remained at the window. She thought of the Velkari promise, carved in crystal in embassies across the galaxy. When humanity calls, the Velkari answer. Soon, she thought, humanity would make that call. The galaxy had forgotten what humanity did for others. They were about to be reminded what humanity did to those who wronged them. The debt would be repaid in full. The galaxy feared what came after. Humans repaid their debt. Part 1, the conference room aboard the orbital station looked out into the vast darkness of space. Inside, representatives from 40 different species sat in their designated areas. Some breathed oxygen, others needed different gases. The translation devices hummed softly, converting thousands of languages into something everyone could understand. Ambassador Minho stood near the human section, watching the chaos unfold. He had been Earth's voice in the Galactic Assembly for 5 years now, but he had never seen the Council this disturbed. On the central holographic display, images of the Valkyrie homeworld rotated slowly. Once it had been beautiful, covered in silver forests and crystal cities. Now entire continents showed only gray and brown. The Valkyrie are dying, the assembly speaker announced. Her voice carried no emotion, as was tradition. The Crimson Fade has spread to 90% of their population. Medical teams from 17 species have attempted to find a cure. All have failed. Minho felt a tightness in his chest. The Valkyrie were known across the galaxy as the Gardeners. For thousands of years they had helped younger species, asking nothing in return. They had given knowledge freely, stopped wars with wisdom, and saved countless civilizations from extinction. Now they needed help and no one could save them. The situation is beyond hope, another representative said. This one belonged to the Thaxian Empire, a species that had been traveling the stars when humans still lived in caves. We should focus our resources elsewhere. The Valkyrie have had a long and noble existence. Perhaps it is simply their time. Minho stepped forward before he could stop himself. With respect, we don't believe that. The room fell silent. All eyes in various shapes and numbers turned toward him. Humans were new here. Barely 70 years in the galactic community. They were supposed to listen and learn, not speak up. Humanity wishes to attempt a cure. Minho continued. His heart pounded, but his voice stayed steady. We request permission to send a research team to the Valkyrie homeworld. Laughter echoed through the translation devices. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults give to naive children. Ambassador Minho, the speaker said gently, your species is still young. You mean well, but you must understand. The greatest medical minds in the galaxy have examined this plague. If they cannot solve it, what makes you think humans can? Minho looked directly at the display showing the dying world. Because we're too stupid to know when something is impossible. More laughter, but Minho didn't care. Humans have a saying on Earth. We don't know the meaning of the word quit because we're too stubborn to look it up. Let us try. If we fail, we fail. But at least we tried. The speaker considered this. Finally, she nodded. Very well. Humanity may make its attempt. But do not waste too much time and resources on this. The Valkyrie have perhaps 6 months remaining. 3 days later, Captain Jiwan stood on the bridge of the human vessel Endeavor's Hope as it entered orbit around the Valkyrie homeworld. She was young for a captain, only 35, but she had volunteered immediately when the mission was announced. Beside her stood Dr. Hana, the chief xenobiologist, already reviewing data on her tablet. It's worse than the report suggested, Hana said quietly. The Crimson Fade attacks their cells at a genetic level. It's like their own bodies are turning against them. Can we stop it? Jiwan asked. I don't know, but we're going to try. The research station was set up on the outskirts of one of the last functioning Valkyrie cities. Commander Daeun supervised the security teams while scientists from Earth worked around the clock. The Valkyrie themselves were gentle beings, tall and slender with skin that shimmered like starlight. They moved slowly now, weakened by the plague, but they greeted the humans with gratitude. Weeks turned into months. The promised 6 months came and went. The Galactic Assembly sent messages asking when humanity would admit defeat. Jiwan ignored them. On the surface, Hana and her team worked 18-hour days, sleeping in short bursts, surviving on determination and coffee. It makes no sense, Hana told Jiwan during one of their brief meetings. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Every treatment we try either does nothing or makes things worse. It's like the plague adapts to whatever we throw at it. Maybe we're thinking about this wrong, Jiwan suggested. What if we don't try to kill it? What if we try to change it? That conversation led to a new approach. Instead of attacking the Crimson Fade directly, Hana's team began looking at Earth's own history with diseases. They studied ancient viruses, bacterial infections, and the natural immune responses that had evolved over millions of years. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Dr. Hana was reviewing old Earth medical files when she found information about bacteriophages, viruses that attacked bacteria. These tiny organisms had been used on Earth for over 300 years to fight infections. What if we modify a phage to target the Crimson Fade? She proposed to her team. Not to destroy it, but to alter its genetic code, make it harmless? It was a long shot. It required combining Earth biology with Velkari genetics in ways that had never been attempted. The other scientists in the galaxy called it foolish, but humans had built their entire civilization on long shots. 2 years passed. The Velkari population dropped to critical levels. Only a few 100,000 remained alive, kept stable by human medical care but not cured. The Galactic Assembly prepared to declare the species extinct. Then, on a cold morning in the research station, Hana ran into the command center with tears streaming down her face. "It works," she gasped. "Captain, it works. The modified bacteriophage, created from Earth organisms and Velkari genetic material, didn't just stop the crimson fade. It reversed it. Cells that had been damaged began to repair themselves. Velkari, who had been hours from death, started to recover. Within 6 months, the plague was completely eradicated. The Velkari began to rebuild. Their population would take generations to fully recover, but they would survive. The Galactic Assembly held a special session to honor humanity's achievement. Representatives who had laughed at Minho now stood to applaud. But it was the Velkari themselves who gave the greatest tribute. Their matriarch, ancient beyond counting, stood before the assembled galaxy. Her voice, once weak from illness, now rang clear and strong. "Humanity asked for nothing," she said. "They expected no payment, no reward, no debt. But the Velkari remember. We will remember for as long as our species exists. From this day forward, let it be known across all stars and all worlds. Humanity saved us when all others had given up. We owe them a debt that can never be fully repaid. But we will try for all eternity." The Velkari gifted humanity with 3 treasures. First, advanced terraforming technology that would allow humans to settle hostile worlds. Second, access to restricted jump gate networks cutting travel time across the galaxy by months. Third, and most important, a promise carved into crystal and placed in every human embassy across the stars. The promise read simply, "When humanity calls, the Velkari answer." Ambassador Minho stood in Earth's main embassy, looking at that crystal promise mounted on the wall. He felt proud of his species, proud of what they had accomplished. But he also felt something else, something he couldn't quite name. He wondered if the galaxy truly understood what they had just witnessed. Humanity hadn't saved the Velkari because they expected rewards. They had done it because it was right. Because when someone needed help, you helped them. It was that simple. The galaxy would soon learn that this worked both ways. Humanity remembered debts owed to them just as clearly as debts they owed to others. But that lesson was still years away, waiting in the future like a storm on the horizon.